All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Well, it's Saturday, so we got our social episode, social, cultural, political episode, and we'll probably start because we got some comments last time. Some good comments. Uh, so keep them coming. It helps the algorithm and all that bullshit. So, do we want to start there? We also want to talk about the fight last night because Netflix failed, but and so did Tyson. But it's excusable. I mean, he had 30 years on the guy, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to start with the comments from last time because usually we start with the comments anyway, and because this first one is just making me laugh, and I have to wonder, is this just a drive-by? Is this a bot or what? But
I did
from our
if it's Frank Reddick, right?
yeah,
I did respond to see if he
yeah, and I
would
saw your
engage.
your
Yeah.
comment, and you very nicely said, as we still have the misfortune luxury of being small enough to pay attention to every comment, could you be more specific? And we'll address it at the beginning of this week's social political episode. No response, of course. And the comment was garbage analysis, but what can you expect? Social scientists tend to not look at the numbers.
Which I'm pretty sure we spent most of the time discussing numbers.
The
Uh,
title of the episode is Post Election: The Good and Bad Moves by the Numbers. That's point number one. And
Point number
yes,
two is I am actually a physiologist. I have gone back to school in the social sciences because they don't pay attention to the numbers properly or they misuse them. There's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics, right? And that's
it would
why
be
I'm there.
it would be arguable in general. I mean, probably 60-40. I would say people would call it a social science, but I think a lot of people, I think 4 out of 10 people would probably say no, psychiatry isn't a social science, it's a
Well,
science.
psychology, psychiatry is the MD.
Psychiatry and lumped in with it, I think more people than you would think would consider it a hard science because it is the science of the brain. Now, to
And part
your
of part of the
point,
reason I'm there is because it
exactly,
has been shifting to
exactly.
more of a social study than actual a hard science. But it is ology. It is psychology, ology, the study of, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, we need more neuroscience. We need more hard science back in it. And that's why I'm there. And actually, I've been pretty damn good at having a good influence on a lot of these people. Yeah, maybe 20, 30 people at a time. Nothing like a million follower podcast or something. But yeah, that's 20 or 30 people that are going to be better at their job because they're like, oh, wow, this person that is saying the thing I don't like is actually kind of reasonable. And that's why
Yes.
I'm there. The magic, as Brett Weinstein says, the magic number is zero, zero dissenting voices. And all I've done for the last 2 years basically is be one dissenting voice in a class sometimes.
And to kind of put words in your mouth, to summarize a lot of what you have said about it, is because that line between sociology and psychology has been blurring and blurring dangerously for a while now, and that's not a good thing
Well,
because you
let me
need
let
those
me use
separate
another ology.
disciplines.
It's the blurring of ideology
Mm.
with psychology, because you can even sociology should be
That's a
scientific
good
as
point,
well.
because the reason sociology is such a garbage social science is because it was one of the first infected with postmodernist Marxist ideology. And you can read that. We've said it before, and if you haven't read it, go read White Guilt. He talks about it. Thomas Sowell talks about it, about how he stopped being a socialist and became a free market capitalist. Is, oh, I looked at the numbers, I
The
looked at the
facts, the
results, I
facts.
looked at the facts.
The
I
quote is
worked,
facts. Yeah.
and I worked for the government. So they both talk about this, of the way back in the 60s and especially 70s, sociology became dangerously infected with this ideology. And I've never claimed to be a social scientist. I've called myself a historian because that's what I study, and I try and study the primary sources as often as possible. So when I'm
Well,
doing my analysis, I'm doing it in a historical context, not a social scientist context, But again, back to the original point with the numbers, we were looking at websites with the numbers.
Well, and I did provide a model, which if anybody just look at our history of 300 something episodes, how I despise models because of assumptions. And I very clearly pointed out what my assumptions were in that model. If RFK was polling at this, if the libertarians had these numbers, if that, so I was very
Mm-hmm.
clear about where I did, and I tried to err on the side of not in my favor. It could have been double what I said based on 2016 numbers. So this is exactly how they get you is they make assumptions, they make a model, and then they make a big blanket statement. Like I've pointed out before, what was it? The behind the numbers of racism. And they had a 2003 DOJ article as their 1 in 3 Black Americans will end up incarcerated in their life. But there were two big assumptions about it. That this 1 year increase was the trend. That was one assumption. And the other one was everybody goes to jail for one crime instead of multiple repeat offenders, which was already 20% of the number because the average criminal is a repeat offender 5 times, right? So it's it these two things, and it's a 2017 article pulling from a 2003 article to make their statement, but people run with it because, oh, the science, right? And oh, there's a peer-reviewed article that I can source. But then you look at it and it's completely cherry picked to hell. And not only is it cherry picked to hell with their sources, but the source is cherry picking certain data points to make their point.
Mm-hmm.
So this is exactly why we started this channel, because of the numbers. I mean, I would rather not sit in front of a spreadsheet. I'd rather be outside gardening or something. But yeah, I mean, there you go. I told you what assumptions I made. I tried to err on the side of not in my favor, but it still made my point. And so, I mean, garbage take.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing that makes me laugh about this first comment is, I'll jump down to this comment from apparently we have more international viewers, Canadian. Um, Thank you for
This is
this.
actually the second or third time this person has commented on our videos.
Okay.
So, yeah. So,
Uh,
John, thank you for the comment and keep them coming. We'd love to have you here.
Thank you for confirming that you are in fact Canadian by spelling program incorrectly. Learn to speak American. Um, I am Canadian. I don't
He
understand
spelled
completely.
he spelt it in
That's
imperial.
Yeah, that's fine. A lot of Americans don't understand it completely or at all. I hear that he has won massively, but is this
We
the
speak
case
freedom here, right?
for the Senate? And as it appears, votes for the seats are still being counted for Nevada, California for the House. So the Democrats could win this. Thank you. And you responded that as of writing this, and that was a day ago, per the New York Times, presidential was a landslide with 312 electoral. Yes, you need 270 to win, and then generally it is considered anything over 300 is a landslide in the electoral college. And a 4 to 5 million lead in the popular vote. And I would say the way things have been trending now, anything over 3 million would be a landslide in the popular vote because
And
things have tightened down in
we're
quite a
right
few.
at 3
Yeah.
million right now. Yeah.
Um, Senate majority with 52 and 218 in Congress. 218 is the bubble of majority, but some are still being counted. Yeah, yes. And even on election night, there was and this is the other thing that makes me laugh about the first comment about the garbage analysis is I'm assuming I'm assuming this is a MAGA individual or bot because we said some things they didn't like about Trump. But the thing I said that you should like if you're pro Trump is this was not a red wave, this was a Trump wave. And that was some of the numbers we were looking at is look at the Senate races, some of which were lost, some of which were barely won, and yet Trump won those states with bigger margins. I think the Pennsylvania, that one is there's still some shenanigans going on there, but it looks like the
Shenanigans.
Republicans
Shenanigans. She said this is against the law, but we're still going to do it
yes,
out loud
a
in
county
in
commissioner.
a public space. Yeah.
Yes. So it looks like the Republican Senate candidate there won or is going to win, maybe depending on what happens in the courts and with the county commissioners.
I mean,
But that that
I, I
that
mean,
Senate race was way closer than the actual presidential ballot. And that should say something for Trump and to the GOP, that if you're a MAGA person yelling at us because you don't like because we also said, hey, slow your roll. It's not necessarily, yes, it was big by the numbers, but you have to remember people vote for different reasons. Just because you're super hardcore pro Trump MAGA doesn't mean that's why. What's the number? 60 something million. How many? I can't remember off the top of my head what the number actually is now, but that doesn't mean 60 something million of the rest of your fellow citizens voted for those reasons.
mhm.
Yes, they voted for your guy, but they all had their own reasons for why they did.
Well, and you see that down ballot where they voted for Trump, but they voted for the Democrat Senate person or the Congress person or even the propositions. So you see that down ballot. You see that people did go vote for him,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't go that way.
Well,
You,
to this point, the house seats in California that are still being decided, and which may be why the House actually goes Democrat and the Senate and executive would be Republican, is they had a ballot measure to force the legislature to increase criminal punishments, and it won overwhelmingly.
well,
And
and
yet it's
just
still a
just
very blue state
yeah, just so that we're completely updated on the numbers as of the filming of this episode, we're still at 218 to 212,
per the
which
AP.
per the AP, yeah, and that the Senate we're at 53-47, which is it's a majority. Plus, you got the tiebreaker with Vance as well, and still 312, 226, and I think everything's called there.
Mm-hmm,
So, so that one, I mean, at least I'm just so glad it was it was clear, and we're not
mm-hmm.
doing hanging chads and stupid shit like that.
Yep.
But this is the big one because we're right at a majority, and like you said, there's stuff going on in Pennsylvania. I say we, I'm not a Republican, but the red is at a slight majority. I think it's the direction we needed to go. I hate the fact that we might have a couple rogue people say, well, now we have a mandate to do everything we want, which, as we were just talking about, doesn't mean they voted for you for that reason. It means they voted for you
Yes.
because of probably, I would say the big things are censorship, government overreach, foreign war, and the economy. Those four things are probably the big four.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all related because if you spoke out against money to Ukraine, you were censored, and the money to Ukraine is causing inflation, which is the economy, all of these things. So I think those were the big things. Stick to it. Be If you stick to that and you solve those things, you'll be one of the best presidents in history. Let that feed your narcissism, Trump. That's my plea to you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't overreach on other things that people didn't vote for you for. And I just with the cabinet picks, I think it's going to be a pretty milk toast administration outside of the big things, outside of the foreign policy and recovering the economy.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's actually go there then, because I had things up for
Well, we,
that.
we had
Although
one more comment. Let's
I,
go ahead
I
and
will
give
before we
isomorphic
go.
his
Yes,
yeah.
isomorphic. Thank you for lending support to the Trump Russia collusion narrative. Damn it, which I have already seen coming back. It's coming back. Of course it is. Um,
Oh yeah, Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard are Russian assets. You saw that.
of course I saw that,
Yeah.
and I do want to talk about the leftist reaction, but you made a good point about the leftist reaction or overreaction, as it were, um, and the meltdowns, and yet, so looking at his picks, and I've got CNN here now. Keep in mind
I think
they
I got AP. Let me see who I've got. Oh no,
uh
this is Fox because it was I did one in the past 24 hours. And it was
Okay.
yeah, I wanted to get the most updated.
This was from yesterday,
Okay,
but the
that's close enough.
it's not telling me CNN. So what you have to take with a grain of salt here is I don't know which of these are actually from the Trump camp and which of these have been floated elsewhere.
Mm.
And that's important to remember because,
Everyone I see was from the Trump camp, except I don't know anything about Doug Collins.
yeah, the name rings a bell, but I can't remember who he is. Go back to The Apprentice, and that's not a joke, but Trump's style is very much a court politics style of pitting allies against each other to turn them into rivals to see what cream will rise to the top. So it is entirely in keeping with his personality and his style of administration that he would float out there, yeah, I'm going to nominate this person for this thing and then see what the reaction is.
Yeah, well, and
Especially if there are dueling camps of, no, this person should be that, no, this person should be that, and then see how it fights out in the public before you actually make your official announcement.
so one that's missing there is intelligence, which is Tulsi Gabbard.
That's down here.
Oh, it's down.
Other
Okay.
key roles, because
Okay.
this is actual cabinet
Okay.
up
I
at the
see. I
top
see.
here.
I see.
So in the actual cabinet level, although they put the ambassador to the UN there, and that's not cabinet level so far as I know. But
Well, if Christy Nome comes after my dog, I'm gonna fight her.
Marco Rubio, I'm almost certain, was announced on Truth Social by Trump's account.
Yeah, yeah, and
So
this
that's as
is
official as it gets.
and this is kind of the
Um,
direction if we had gone here that I wanted to go because I gave the libertarians a lot of credit last time.
mhm.
And I mean, who knows? Maybe Frank is a Chase Oliver libertarian. I don't know. But our president is the guy who wrote the book Art of the Deal.
Mhm.
Libertarians got him probably a point and a half or 2 points in the national election. And that was a very smart move, which is the direction we went with that. It wasn't the only reason he won. Maybe that's the
Mhm.
garbage take. We wanted to give a little bit additional to what everybody else was saying, but he shook a lot of hands to get there.
Yes.
And here's another thing about it that people aren't looking at. They're saying, "Oh, RFK, he's not going to make it through the Senate. Matt Gaetz, he's not going to make it through the Senate." Except if you consider that maybe Marco Rubio is there, so those two people make it through the Senate.
Hmm.
These are
Because
hands being shaken
yes,
so you can get your way.
because
Doug
Marco
Burgum is
Rubio
there to
knows
get
how
some.
to wheel and deal. That's
Mm,
one of the reasons he was rejected by GOP primary voters is because of the Gang of Eight immigration compromise, using scare quotes here because it wasn't. It was just everything the Dems wanted, and then promises that would never materialize later. But I digress. He was part of that. In fact, he was one of the point men to try and put that together.
yeah, look at
Rubio
this
knows
like
how to
a
wheel and deal.
yeah, look at this like an NFL trade.
Hmm.
So, they say, okay, I want name a really good wide receiver.
Jefferson.
Okay, I want Jefferson, and I'm going to give you a second round pick and these two other receivers that are not as
Hmm.
good. And so, Trump probably went in there and he was like, okay, so I want RFK on this. I made a
Yeah.
deal. I got some votes. I want Gates here and I want Noam here because those are kind of his yes people, right? Those three. And they're like, oh, we can't do that. We can't have Robert F. Kennedy as HHS. We get too much money from pharma. And he's like, what if Rubio is Secretary of State? And they're like,
Also,
oh, that's a good one. Yeah,
we
yeah.
we shouldn't ignore the eyebrows here. Doug Burgum, who the hell is Doug Burgum?
Also
Nobody knew who that
establishment.
was.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. The reason he was in the primary was because he's an establishment guy with a ton of establishment money.
Hmm.
Kristi Noem, even though she's a big Trump ally, a lot of more conservative people don't like her because she also has a lot of connections to the establishment. So those three in particular, to your point, I think are the trade to get the more inflammatory picks that he wants through the process, through
Hmm.
through the Senate nomination process. Um, and
And I'll tell you what, a lot of people are shitting their pants about Matt Gaetz right now.
Yes, which I love, but to, a point to the right also is a lot of people okay, oh, Rubio, he's establishment, he's too much of a neocon. He's yeah, okay, but who's actually in charge?
Hmm.
Okay. I like how hawkish Rubio is in principle, but then you need that person who's going to say, yeah, yeah, but we're not going to nuke everybody. Calm down, Marco. You
Hmm.
know, but you
Yeah,
do want that point man.
I think he's Bolton 2.0 because Trump in his long form interview talked about how Bolton scared a lot of his enemies
Yes,
into negotiation. So I think Rubio is just the Bolton 2.0 on that.
but someone Trump doesn't think, and I don't think would stab him in the back like Bolton ultimately did when
Hmm.
Trump went against Bolton's advice too many times. Bolton said, "Well, then I'm going to obstruct you, and I'm going to go to the media, and I'm going to talk about how much I don't like you,
Hmm.
and how bad your policies are." Rubio doesn't seem like that. You would have to go a lot farther because again, Rubio's a wheeler and a dealer. I want him to talk tough on China and on Russia and on Iran, but then I want the guy who's calling the shots to be the guy that says, "No, no, we're not going hot unless we have a overwhelming national interest to do so. Otherwise, we're going to use as much strong soft power as we can." But Rubio's also the other reason I like Rubio is because Rubio is great at articulating a message. You know, this is as much as I love DeSantis for what he's done and how just ruthlessly efficient he is as an administrator, unless he's sparring with the media, unless he's sparring with a hostile media, he doesn't message very well.
Hmm.
Rubio is very good at explaining to you. Rubio gave the best, like, 2 minute explanation I've ever heard for why the US embargo on Cuba is important and why going around it actually hurts the Cuban people. And it was the best explainer I've ever heard, and he did it in like 90 seconds, 2 minutes.
Yeah, and he's also apparently ultra conservative for supporting 20-week abortions. You know, that when I was researching people
Oh,
like 4
geez.
years ago, that came up. I'm like, 20 weeks is pretty reasonable. I mean, yeah, we've had that whole discussion. I'm kind of a 24 weeker, but if you gave me 20 weeks, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to complain. Uh,
Mm-hmm. And then down, I didn't show down on the bottom of the other key roles were things like Tulsi as Director of National Intelligence, Elon and Vivek for the Department of Government Efficiency.
there are some middle fingers in there. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely true because Tulsi with intelligence, she's going to get every bit of what they gathered on her. And I
Mm-hmm.
hope she just makes it public.
Yeah.
But did you see what what Doge is doing though? They're having a complete transparency program where
Mm,
you can log on and you can see everything they're doing.
that's cool.
And I'm like, that's a that's okay, yeah, thumbs up. Actually, they put out a hiring thing too. I think I'm gonna just gonna. They said DM us your CV. I'm just gonna do it and just see where they can use me because I've never believed in something as much as Doge in our government since I've been involved in all this stuff. So I'm like, well, shit, use me. Give me a
Hmm.
purpose. I haven't worked for somebody in 20 years other than myself, but you actually have inspired me. So I might actually just throw in a CV and see what happens.
Might as well. Yeah. If you think you have something to add to it, and they also had a good uh, tweet that I saw the other day. I'm trying to remember, but I'm paraphrasing. As basically what they said was, we don't need lots of people with good ideas. We need people who are willing to come in and work 60 to 70 hours a week
Hmm.
to dig in and cut, to actually do the work. And
But
I'm like,
intelligently.
cool.
And that's the thing.
Yes.
Yeah, intelligently. If you're cutting out a tumor, you might, as Vivek always said in his campaign trail, was we might cut out good tissue, but we have to get the tumor out in the process.
Yeah,
So if you leave a little bit of that tumor in and you cut out good tissue, then you've done more damage. So hopefully that's still the philosophy.
yeah, hopefully. Well, and yet, despite all of this seemingly reasonableness from right and left of center, as from us looking in, people on the left are utterly melting down. But here's what I find interesting about the meltdown is one, a lot of it's not that new. You see the Hollywood people of I'm leaving the country. Yeah, that happens every election. Yeah, nobody cares, and most of you don't end up leaving. There does appear to actually be an exodus from X, which I find funny because all Elon did was say, yeah, so long as you're not breaking the law, you can be on this platform. Say what you want, so long as you're not breaking the law, because it is an actual platform. We are not a publisher, is essentially what he said and what he did. And look at how the left is melting down. So again, the mask is coming off. Who are the actual fastest here?
So this is CBS News, so we're not biased here. So the person who had over $1 billion for her campaign is still raising money for a
Yeah.
recount. Is the word on the street? They want to recount, so they're raising money for that. But the
But
other
do
word
they
on the
really
street
want
is
to recount, or is it that's her excuse to raise money so she can pay off her
pay off their
debts?
debts. Yeah. So the one that really got me, everybody knows the bubble in Vegas, right? The bubble was losing money. The bubble is so expensive. She put out an ad on the bubble for a while, and I found out that it was $500,000 a day to run that ad. That doesn't take long to get to several million dollars. Half a
Well,
million a day. And in a city that she already won.
and as we talked about, I was getting so infuriated because the last couple of weeks it was accelerating leading into the election as it always does. And so the last 2 or 3 Sundays, every single ad break, there was at least one Harris ad. Now, sometimes there was more than one because sometimes there was a Harris Waltz ad, and then sometimes there was a Harris Super PAC ad that wasn't officially hers, but it was still theirs. You're doing that in every market in what is by far the biggest live television event left on network television, which is NFL. That's going to add up fast too. There were a lot of those ads. Um, and how many of them were like why am I seeing them? Unless those were national ad buys, why am I seeing those in Texas? Because you have no prayer of winning Texas.
Okay, so you can get a nonstop flight. I just looked this up from Washington, D.C. to Austin for $408 on Southwest right now. 128 if you take Frontier. So let's go ahead and quadruple that for Air Force, whatever the vice president takes. You know what's a lot cheaper than $500,000 a day? Flying to Austin and sitting down for 3 hours with Joe Rogan and being in front of 150 million people. That's a lot cheaper than $500,000 a day. But she wouldn't do it. And everybody's like, oh, well, he's a right winger. She was just going to be getting in front of his audience. Yeah, his audience, Bernie bros. Go take a bunch of Bernie talking points and go sit down with Joe Rogan, and you would have got votes.
I still can't even find this. Um, yeah, okay, well it's down there a ways and it doesn't autofill. That can't be right because
What is it?
so I looked it up um on YouTube to see how many views the Trump interview had, and it's still saying 50 million.
It
It
was
said that
50 millions 3 days into it.
exactly. That's why I say that can't be right. There's got to be more views than that. And that was
Okay,
on
so the one
YouTube
that comes up
on
first when
purpose.
you search for it is the Vice President Kamala Harris interview on Call Her Daddy. That still has not broken a million views. 885K.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know how much they spent on that? They built a set for that for several $100,000. One time to be on that. They built a set for this woman who has a podcast, who's apparently like really big in the femosphere, the pink pill community. They built her a new set for several $100,000, probably paid her some of that, which they did to all the celebrities, and they still haven't broken a million views to this day. 3 months ago.
So the leftist meltdown is interesting to me because one, part of what we've already talked about before, which is, and I've referenced friends and family members personally that were freaking out that people are going to go, Trump's going to put people in camps. He's going to suspend elections. Where are you getting this from? You do remember that he was actually president once before, right? And even though there was a highly contested election, maybe the most contested since, you know, either the 1852 one was really nasty, and then the 1872, I think it was, when basically there was this deal that got rid of Reconstruction. Those were some hotly contested elections, and I don't know that there has been one since before 2020. And in the end, no matter what you think of how terrible January 6th was and what you think happened there, um, did he or did he not ultimately step down? He
Yeah,
stepped
he
down.
he he handed over the power exactly when he had to
So
by the
where
law. Yeah.
where is this freak out coming from? One, and there's still the meltdowns going. I mean, for crying out loud, you have
RFK
so
on Joe Rogan had 3 times the views of Harris on Call Her
you
Daddy.
have so gaslit people that there have been verified reports, not many, thankfully, of murders and murder suicides
I just
after
saw
the
one.
election.
I just saw one today where there was a young trans individual that committed suicide after the election because she was going to be uh, put in a camp or whatever was in her
Yeah.
note. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is, I want to chew the people out that I go to school with, Frank, that is like, this is you. You did
Yeah.
this. You
Yeah.
have convinced these young people that are confused. Give every bit of sympathy to these people because they do feel out of place in their own body, which we do that with depression, we do that with anxiety, we do that with all kinds of things. And you made this person even more scared.
Yes. You have been running around for years. You were running around saying that he was a tool of Russia, and now you've just been running around saying he's literally Hitler and his followers are literally Nazis. What do you expect when literal Nazis get elected to power? But here's where my dark humor acts up, and I kind of laugh at it though, is you're running around calling him literally Hitler, and yet then you're gonna concede the election. How do you concede to Hitler?
Well,
And
this is the thing that everybody says, oh, he didn't concede, so he was holding on to power, but he gave the power over exactly when he had to, right? All the Democrats do that. They just do it nicely.
well,
They say, "Oh, I
yeah.
concede the election, but I'm going to do." Their words say, "I concede the election," but
Hmm.
their actions say, "I'm contesting this the whole way."
Hmm.
And we have it going on right now. Like I said, raising money for a recount.
Well, and that is part of the reason. That's also part of the reason no one ever officially ends a campaign. They suspend their campaign because then they can keep fundraising.
Hmm.
But I'm wondering what your thoughts are on why is there no summer of love? I was expecting violent outbursts. Now, part of this is because we saw Andy No posted this, is that Seattle of all places, Antifa tried this, and Seattle of
Portland,
all places, Portland,
Portland, yeah, yeah.
even worse, even worse, Portland cracked down immediately and said,
Oh, they
they
cut
sent
that.
in
Yeah, yeah, they cut
hundreds
that
of
riot down.
officers.
But the thing that people don't get is that riot was going to happen whether no matter who won. They did it in 2020 and they ran around with a sign that said we're ungovernable.
But
It's like,
the where the dark humor is flaring up though is you have so gaslit lit people they are freaking the heck out, but you have also so coddled these people that they are so weak they're not actually doing anything. Am I wrong here? Am I missing something here? But that's what it seems like to me.
oh well, it's worse. This actually might be the segue for this. Uh, there's this. If you haven't seen this yet, this is on the congressional
Uh,
floor. This is not a parody.
uh, you're not sharing that with sound, but
Oh shit, sorry. Uh,
there are there are subtitles, so that's what's getting me this is like coming out and saying new, when Klaus and the others say new world order or one
okay,
world government, and I'm like, you're saying the quiet part out loud, guys. Do you understand this?
it's not even the
Shadow.
quiet part out loud. He has a big sign next to him that says Shadow Cabinet.
If Trump attempts to weaponize the justice system against his political opponents with Matt Gaetz at the helm, we could see incoming Senator Adam Schiff as our shadow attorney general,
Yeah,
arguing against
Adam Schiff, the one who was sleeping with a Chinese spy. That
No, no,
one.
no. That was Eric Swalwell.
Oh, that was Swallow. Okay, so sorry. I
Adam
no defamation,
Schiff.
no
No,
defamation.
Adam Schiff is worse because that dude was just getting his rocks on, and Fang Fang Bang Bang, whatever your name was. I have information. I do too. I know things. Totally. Anyway, no, Schiff is worse because who Schiff was on whatever committee it was that was investigating Trump for impeachment and for the Russia collusion, what turned out to be a straight up hoax, and they knew it. Go back where I break down the Inspector General's report on that. And yet, while that investigation was going on, Schiff, who had access to all the data, who had access to all of the classified and declassified and public stuff, he was every night on CNN or MSNBC making wild claims that there was hard evidence that he had seen, hard evidence, classified evidence that he had seen. These were his claims, and it never came out, and no one ever called him on it. Certainly not the tappers of the world who like to pretend they are objective journalists. Never called him on it. The dude is just straight up lying every night on media. Yes, we have Trump dead to rights. I have seen the evidence. Okay, Schiff, where is it? Never saw it.
Let's take the individuals out of it, though. They are talking about having a shadow government. Everybody in the audience, if you have stuck with this, you probably aren't going to be one of these people. But if you said anything online about J6ers and you're not opening your mouth about that video,
Mm-hmm.
it, yeah, it looks different, but it's the same damn thing. It's sedition. This is somebody saying we are going to overthrow the government.
So I'm in a group chat with some friends, and one of them went off on a rant, and I didn't feel like getting into it about why he is so wrong and myopic and hypocritical.
Do I
So
know them?
yeah.
Uh,
So I just said,
you'll have to tell me after we're done because
I just commented with an old saying of "Ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun."
ooh.
Old Southern saying. That's all I
Yeah.
said was "Ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun." And then he went off and I just laughed because I'm not going to get into it. But this is exactly why no one likes me and everyone unfriended me in 2015, 2016, because all of my lefty friends would, yeah, when I would criticize Trump from the right about, no, I'm not voting for this guy. This guy isn't conservative. I don't trust him. He's a New York liberal. But then I would point out, hey, guys, you realize he's doing the same stuff Obama did, right? Both rhetorically and practically. Only a lot of times Obama was worse. And then the left people started hating me. Well, same thing here. The start of that shadow government speech was Adam Schiff as a shadow attorney general of if he weaponizes against his political enemies. Guys, even people on the left are saying that the cases against Trump are garbage, are
Hmm.
absolute garbage. That um they use the most uh novel legal ideas to come up with these indictments. Even people on the left are saying that. And you're saying if Trump weaponizes, you already did it, you jackhole.
Hmm.
You're freaking out about, well, if Trump does this, what has been going on through the whole Biden administration? And even before then, I'll go back to my rants about Obama and the IRS and what they did to 501c3 Tea Party groups. That was blatant and unapologetic, and no one was ever held to account. Certainly not Obama. And I will once again, because I'm not a social scientist, I'm a historian, and in a historical context, what ultimately doomed Nixon is when the tapes came out and people heard Nixon talking about using the IRS to go against political enemies. He never actually did it, but just talking about it was enough that even Republicans abandoned him in droves and said, no, you've gone too far and we can't let this kind of thing stand.
I'm looking for something. The Oh, here we go. That's what I was looking for. Look how happy this man looks.
The Trump and Biden meeting in the White House.
Yeah. Look
And
how
Biden
happy.
has this huge shitting grin on his face.
Okay, so we were talking about weaponizing government and everything. Weeks before the election, this administration passed a law that allows that to even be
Mm-hmm.
more possible.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're afraid of Trump doing that, why are you passing this law that makes it possible? Were you so sure you were going to win?
Mm-hmm.
Or does this man actually not like some people on his own side? He seems pretty ecstatic right now.
I want to say it was Louis Gohmert, who was a Republican House member from somewhere in the South. And I remember him in whenever the NSA spying leaks, whenever all that stuff started to come out, he was one of the first Republicans I heard publicly apologize for the Patriot Act. And he said he went to a number of Democrat colleagues and said, you were right, I was wrong. Because the argument against the Patriot Act was it could be used for this. And this is Gohmert saying, I said, it's never going to be used for that. You were right, I was wrong. But the downside to that apology was when he pointed out how only about half of them were still with him. Only about half of them said yes, and we need to do something about it. And the others didn't care because, again, it's no fun when the rabbit got the gun, and they got the gun this time.
Yeah, and
It
fast
was it
forward
was a
to the
Democrat administration, so it was fine.
yeah, and fast forward to the Obama administration where not only do they have the gun, they doubled down and added a bump stock. It's it expanded the powers
Mm-hmm.
because okay, we couldn't propagandize our own people. Now we can. We can't warrantless survey our own people, but now we can. This thing that was racist because it was used on Arab Americans. Now, okay, we'll make it not racist by making it to where we can use it on every American
Mm-hmm.
instead of removing the power to begin with.
Yeah, yeah, and this is one of the reasons I think the freak out from um the left power people, the media and the politicians, why I think it is so extreme is because I think they know that there were illegalities done here. There were things that were done that are actually prosecutable. not just bad politically, not just bad for optics, but no, there were things that were done where people could and should go to jail. And this is one of my criticisms of a lot of people on the right I've started to see some of these. Was it the Atlantic? Was it an Atlantic article we shared a couple years ago of, oh, hey, you know what?
Mistakes were made. Yeah.
Mistakes were made
Over the
during the
COVID
response to
stuff. Yeah.
COVID. We just need an amnesty for COVID so we can all move on. No. Amnesty is how you perpetuate the problem.
I don't think that's the direction we're going because of the appointments. The person who was surveilled on is now the head of the surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
The person who was most discriminated against on COVID policy is now proposed to be the head of health policy. So I think there is a reckoning coming. Be smart about it. I agree with you that it should be done to some degree, because if there's no consequences, you will always have bad actors. But at the same time, be smart about it.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure the evidence is overwhelming.
Be transparent about it. In order
Transparent.
for this to not become Banana Republic style persecuting your enemies, but actually prosecuting criminals, it has to be transparent, and it has to be. I'm going to be very curious. I think you said this a couple weeks ago. Is I don't want Vivek in the Department of Government Efficiency. I want him as the spokesperson. I want him as the press secretary.
Didn't they name a press secretary?
I think they might have.
I
Or
think
maybe a communications director.
Caroline Levitt as press
Okay.
secretary.
Okay.
I don't know who that is.
I have no idea who that is, and that concerns me. I hope you are articulate. That is what I do like about the Vance selection.
Press secretary on his campaign.
Okay. The problem is I don't
young.
recall seeing a lot
27.
of that. The press for his campaign was all long form podcasts.
And already doing Botox. Oh, God damn it. Sorry, I can spot those things.
Maybe it's for migraines. You don't know.
No, and lip injections too.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
But that is going to be critical in explaining, guys, this isn't persecution, this is prosecution. Here is why. Let me lay out the case for you. And this is where actually
why couldn't he just bring back McEnany? Come on.
This is where I would have liked. There are things about Gates that I greatly dislike because he does come across as a sleazy used car salesman. But there are things that he does that are kudos to you. That's an attaboy. Plus, he's done incredible work with the Vikings this year, with a quarterback that a lot of people thought was a bust. So definitely kudos for that. But
that came a little bit out of my nose. Oh,
I timed that on purpose. You're welcome.
Oh, at least it wasn't my eyes this time. Oh. And I brought that to your attention, by the way.
Yes, you did. I know. You gave.
For those that are just listening, the head coach of the Vikings looks like Matt Gates. So
yeah, he looks like Matt Gates without the makeup and plastic hair. But if one of the driving focuses of the Attorney General is going to be getting to the bottom of all of these shenanigans and seeing, okay, what was sleazy politics and what was actually criminal conduct, I would rather have the boring guy there. I would rather have DeSantis or Cruz or Mike Lee as the Attorney General, because they can do what Rudy did, and why Rudy would be great, except he's too old. He doesn't have the
and he's tainted too. And he's tainted for 2020. Yeah,
he's tainted goods from being Trump's personal lawyer. Cruz, DeSantis, Lee, they are all very competent, capable lawyers. Cruz in particular, because Cruz is actually argued in front of the Supreme Court.
He's the most winningest lawyer in front of the Supreme Court.
He's the most. He's the winningest Solicitor General that ever, because he was the Solicitor General for Texas for I don't remember how long. So he could actually do a press conference of, all right, here is my whiteboard. Here are all the connections. Here is the case. I am going to lay out my case for you. And he could do it in a very clinical way that would get the point across and make it clear that this is not persecution, this is prosecution. I don't think Gates is capable of that, but if Gates is going to appoint people under him to do that, if there are going to be special prosecutors to look into some of these things that can do that, okay. And then he can be your point man firebrand.
Yeah, I actually agree with you that Cruz would be better at that, but I don't think you're completely on that he can't do that because I've seen him in long form interview
Okay.
and he's very, very good at articulating his point. So yeah, I do agree that Cruz would be better at it, but I don't think we're going to be as wanting as you think we are.
Well, that's something.
Yeah. Now his motivations, we'll see, because he's fiery. And when you get fiery, you get a little bit of that revenge motive too. And we want justice, not revenge. And that's I think that's the main theme that I was trying to get out, that let's make sure, like the word you use, transparent, was better than the words I was using. But yeah, it's got to be transparent. It's got to be overwhelming evidence, and it has to be just. It cannot be reaction.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is why I griped about early on when it was still the primary of why I wasn't going to vote for him if the primary ever even made it to Texas, was his laughing about the lock her up chance and that played in the campaign, but now we have to get back. No. Not locking her up is why you got into the lawfare you got into, because no one was ever punished. And the reason to lock Hillary up, and other people have written about this ad nauseum, people who actually have worked in this space, the reason you lock her up is because you have a father of four who took a picture for his kids and accidentally had something in the background of the submarine he was stationed on that wasn't supposed to be in a picture, and he went to jail. She had an entire off books server full of classified information, and the FBI director flat out said, yeah, but no prosecutor anywhere would actually prosecute her, so we're just going to drop it. No. That's not how the law's supposed to work.
Yeah, I think that's going to come through with the intelligence, though, because who did Hillary call a Russian asset? Tulsi Gabbard.
Mm-hmm.
And now who's going to have all the information that could incriminate Hillary?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, it can't be about revenge, and that's where I'm a little iffy on the appointments. But motivation is motivation. And if it gets to the truth, I just hope it's very transparent. I hope it's not divisive.
Mm-hmm.
It can't help but be a little bit divisive, but there are better ways to go about it. And yeah, we've got to do something about these WEF elites that have been running the country for so long, since we were kids.
Yeah. But like I said, doing it euphemistically, and now the mask is off and they're just straight up saying New World Order, one world government. Well, hopefully the Trump second administration isn't as dull and disappointing as the fight last night.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue, because I was going to say this is my critique of the fight last night was the strategy. You say older and wiser, but older and easier tired. And if I was to get in, if someone convinced me to go get back in the ring again, that was 2009 was my last official fight, so 15 years ago. If someone convinced me to get back in the ring, I would actually go balls out to win in the first round, because you get tired faster at this age. That's just the way of things. And Tyson still had the power. I watched his training videos. I watched that. He should have just gone in there and gone for it in the first 2 rounds and let it lie after that, just do some damage. And he chose I'm going to play smart. I'm going to play smarter than this guy who hasn't trained as much as I have. And you look at him from rounds 4 through 8, he was tired.
Oh yeah.
He just wasn't doing anything.
Yeah. And Roy Jones Jr., one of the commentators, was on that right off the bat of, oh, his legs already look tired. Jones was saying that in like the second or third round of,
Yeah,
I don't like the way his legs look.
because he was stiff-kneed. Yeah,
Yeah.
he wasn't springy. you could see the lockout of his, especially the one that had a brace on it. So I wonder if he had an injury.
Hmm.
But even still, if you have an injury, that is more motivation to just go in
Yeah.
and it's the old die standing, right? You go in, and if you get knocked out, you get knocked out, but you're not
Where I
gonna.
had hope was there were a couple of times they weren't strong hits, but in the first round, the first and second round, Tyson took some punches. He never looked out of it. He still looked focused. You could see it in
Mhm,
his eyes. I remember the Holyfield fights, the first one in particular, the infamous one of, yeah, he did that on purpose because he got rocked and you could see it in his eyes.
mhm.
He got rocked. That he lost his focus. His infamous saying, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Well, you got punched in the face by one of the hardest punchers in the heavyweight division, and you could see it in his eyes. And then it all went downhill from there until he came up with a unique way to end the fight.
Yeah. Well, and people don't give Paul credit too. They're like, oh, he's a YouTuber. This guy's got FU money. All
Hmm.
he does is podcast and train
Hmm.
for these things. He probably trains more than most professional boxers because they have regular day jobs. And so, yeah, okay, so he didn't come up the traditional route, but he's a professional at this point. Look at all these good fights he's had. I mean, Tyrone Woodley, uh he put a good fight up against, or was that his brother that fought Mayweather?
I thought that was his brother,
That
but
was
I
his
don't
brother.
remember.
Yeah, but these guys, they just basically sit in front of camera for a little bit, play video games, and train. That's what these guys do. And probably F every once in a while. It's they don't work at Home Depot like a lot of fighters do, getting up in
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
the ranks. So yeah, I mean, call him a professional at this point.
Oh, sure, he's a professional, and people who know the game better than I do, like actual boxing. You know, I've watched some boxing, but I watched a lot more MMA and wrestling than I have boxing. And so, like actual boxing guys, like I referenced Steve Kim, who's on with Whitlock frequently, and he's an actual boxing guy. He has a boxing podcast. I think it's called Three Count Rule or something like that with Mario Lopez, who's also a huge boxing guy. So they do a podcast that is just boxing, and Kim has said, yeah, the guy can fight. The guy's a good boxer. He's a legit boxer. Where I don't have any respect for him, though, I can respect your skills, but I don't respect you. Is look how many of his fights were old guys or
Mhm.
MMA guys or old MMA guys who he's fighting in the boxing ring.
Yeah, but that's the shtick.
Exactly.
It's the trash talk. It's
You,
the it's the it, it's the exhibition era of what is,
you
and
want me
it's
to
actually.
respect you fighting Silva, then you get in the ring with you get in the cage with the spider, and then let's see what happens when he climbs on your back. Okay, I don't care how old he is.
Yeah, or someone like a good one would be GSP or something like that. One of these, bigger small
Who
guys.
who you outweigh by like 30 pounds, but I still
GSP
think would
probably
rock you.
walks around about 210.
Okay,
That guy's solid.
I thought he would. What did he fight at? Did he fight at light
170.
heavy? Okay,
170.
yeah, I
But
didn't
he
think he
but he
fought at
he
light
fought a few
heavy.
at,
So
he fought a few at middleweight at
okay,
185. But I mean, now that he hasn't been having to make weight for forever, I bet you he's about 10 pounds heavier too.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that dude's solid. Go get in the ring with someone like that, or the cage with someone like that.
Hmm.
Uh, and you never know. But
But
no.
but
What I do, here's where I'm going to give Paul credit though.
mhm.
Look at the state of the industry of boxing before he got back into it, before he got into it and did these exhibitions.
Yep,
Boxing was dying.
yes.
Tyson Fury versus what is the guy who fought like three times? Uh, they were pulling pay-per-views, but not pay-per-views that got more views on Netflix
It,
than
it, it
anything
wasn't like
else.
the old days of the 80s and then even into the 90s a little bit of
Mhm.
the big heavyweight draws of Douglas Tyson and Holyfield Douglas, those were
Uh,
huge pay-per-view draws. Foreman, his first
Tommy Gunn and Foreman. That was one of the
yeah.
best fights I've ever watched. Yeah.
Those were huge pay-per-view draws, and to your point, it was dying. And also where I will defend Paul slightly is that Boxing's always been a spectacle.
Hmm.
I mean, for crying out loud, I referenced, I loved the movie on Netflix, Big George Foreman, and I mean, they portray Muhammad Ali pretty accurately. I mean, him and Cosell, they turned those fights into spectacles,
Hmm.
and it wasn't always about the skill of the fighter versus the skill of the fighter.
Well, and here's a downstream effect of that. Barrios versus Ramos was an amazing fight.
Yes.
And millions of people wouldn't have seen it if it wasn't for the headline. I didn't
Yeah.
get to see the chick fight as much because that was
It
when
kept
Netflix was
crashing.
crashing.
Yep.
Yeah, but apparently, I mean, that went down to the wire, and it was an upsetting decision. And
Hmm.
but that Barrios Ramos fight was one of the best boxing matches I've ever seen. And these people would have never been in front of that audience if it wasn't for Jake Paul.
Hmm.
So that is the use of it, is the publication. It
Yes.
is to get it in front of people and then showcase these
And
younger people trying to make a name for themselves and make some money.
you made the point about the chicks, even though you didn't get to watch the fight. I watched most of it. Um, and there
I
was
I, I probably got about 70% of it between
I
in and outs.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think I watched the first round or two and then it croaked and then I finally got back in like the sixth or seventh round. So I got to watch the end of it. And you texted me this point that you were going to bring up in class and try not to get in trouble of, hey, you want equality for chicks. If it weren't for this Paul jackass fighting a 58-year-old boxer whose last sanctioned match was, I think, 2002
Mm-hmm.
was the last time Tyson fought for realsies until he had the couple of exhibitions coming into this. This was round two for these girls, and apparently they're a big deal. It was for a belt. I'd never heard of them,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it was a good fight. And I'm a chauvinist, so I usually don't like watching chicks fight, especially this one because there was a nasty cut in this one,
I like
and
it
I
when they're
don't
fighting each other.
I don't like to see girls all beat up. I don't like it even when they're fighting each other. Definitely not when they're fighting someone who had a bat and balls for the first 20 something years of his life, but I digress. But it's just as an unabashed chauvinist, it's hard for me to watch that because they bloodied each other pretty good, especially in the last half of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
But again, a very solid fight with good fighters who you never would have seen if it weren't for this, and a lot of people didn't see because did I send you the meme that I think my wife sent me about next Netflix tried their almost? I think was the
Uh, I don't remember that. No, no.
that they were. I don't know that
Oh yeah,
they.
yeah, you did send me that. Netflix said today I'm going to give it my almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I don't know how many people watched it. I wanted to watch it live. One, because I didn't want it spoiled. Two, because I was awake and I figured might as well have it on. But also because I remember reading and hearing from a lot of people that it took a while for them to post the Brady roast and they edited it. So I didn't know what might happen in a boxing match that would lead them to edit it, but I wanted to make sure if there was anything going, I wanted to see it live and real, not
Hmm.
edited because somebody got their feelings hurt. Somebody objected to something. So that was the other reason I wanted to watch it live.
No, it was overall good. Yeah, the last fight was kind of disappointing, but I mean, he's almost 60. Come on. He's
That is
he's
what,
he's he's still an amazing
yeah.
human being when it comes to physical prowess. You know, hate him for other reasons, fine, but when it comes to boxing,
Hmm.
he 30 years is he had he was more years older than Jake Paul is old. That's that's saying something. That, and I
Hmm.
don't think they tested.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah, because I mean, he's got to be on TRT. So Jake Paul's like, well, if they're not testing, I'm going to go ahead and do it too.
Well, you just look at look
Uh,
at look at him standing next to his idiot brother, whose name I don't remember, and
Logan.
they used to look very similar. Jake Paul's head is gigantic now.
Hmm.
He's on HGH.
Yeah, he's on something or a lot
Yeah,
of things. Yeah.
he's very thick. He's very barrel chested and he's got a big head. He's on something. But um my frustration going into it or coming out of it was the same going into it is I said early on when I first heard of this is, well, I'm gonna watch it probably because I've got Netflix, so I might as well. And the reason I'm watching it is I assume the reason so many other people watched it, which is I want to see the old guy just knock this dumb kid out. I want to see him hurt him because he's that obnoxious.
Well, and that was the whole reason to keep watching, because it could have happened at any moment.
Because power's the last thing
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
But it became more and more evident early on, evident halfway through the fight that it's not going to happen because Paul's, he may be a dumb kid, quote unquote, but he's not actually dumb. I mean, he's smart enough to have built this empire that they have, this influencer crap.
Mhm.
He's also smart enough to have gotten in the ring with people who can throw punches. And so going into it, I figured, well, this is a win-win for him because even if he gets knocked out, it's okay. It's the first time he's been knocked out, maybe even knocked down, but it was freaking Iron Mike Tyson.
Mhm.
And nobody's going to care that he's 58 years old. Or I don't remember where it was, but about halfway in, around round 4 or 5, he took a decent shot to the head. It wasn't a knock you out shot. It wasn't even a rock you shot. It was a you feel it shot
Mhm.
because it wasn't his full power. I think it may have been a lead hand hook. It wasn't even with his rear hand. And it hit up here, up on the side of the head, which for anyone who's never been hit in the head, if you're going to get hit in the head, you want to be hit where the cranium is its thickest, which is the forehead and the top. You get hit in the temple, you get hit down in the jaw, that's where you start to get rocked because there's less padding there, you
Well, and
know.
there's a nerve that shoots back to the
And if you
brainstem from
catch
here. Yeah.
that's the button, yeah. Where if you catch that button, you jam that nerve and everything short circuits. So it let him take a clean enough hit that he got to look tough. And that's when he stuck his tongue out and wagged his head and showboated for a second. And I really wanted Tyson to knock his block off, but that's why he was doing it. He was playing the heel. He was being the influencer, and that's where it was a win-win because either he gets knocked out by Tyson and well, yeah, but it was Iron Mike Tyson, or he takes some hits from Iron Mike and he stays up and he gets
Mhm.
to puff his chest out and continue to brag about how tough I am, even though he will never fight a legit boxer at his weight.
Well, I'll tell you from experience that that showboating actually does play a psychological role,
Yeah.
because there was a time where I actually hallucinated the showboating. It was my last fight, the one I lost. My money shot was a right hook, and I landed one like clean, real clean in the third round. And my brain had him doing the tongue wagging thing, but I watched the video and he almost fell down. But you just all of a sudden feel tired
Mm.
when you see that showboating come back at you when you just landed what you thought was your best shot. And Tyson probably hit him, and it's actually real versus his brain making it show up. But then you see that come back at you, and you're like, I just hit everything I had left. And all of a sudden you feel tired. And that was the moment in the fight where I felt super tired. Obviously I was super tired already, or else I wouldn't have hallucinated, but that was the moment. And I bet you Tyson had that moment too, which, he should be experienced enough, but it's been 20 something years since he's been in there. So yeah, it hits you hard psychologically for sure.
Mm-hmm. To your point, my final thought is I think you're absolutely right that the strategy going in should have been, you know, 2, 3 rounds, give it all you've got.
Mhm.
I wonder how much of his strategy was just be standing at the end. You know, uh the Rocky Balboa movie
Mhm.
that should have ended it and they should have never made the creeds, but I digress. And that was the whole shtick of the movie is,
No, they shouldn't
yeah,
have made Rocky Balboa. I think Creed was better than Rocky Balboa.
I thought Balboa was good. And I thought the premise of, hey, yeah, I'm old, but you know what? It's my life. And if I want to get in for one more time, and I just want to make sure I'm standing at the end,
Mhm.
and that's why I thought it should have ended because it basically came full circle because that was the whole point of Rocky One is, I mean, he's the champ, he's never been knocked down, but no one's ever gone the distance with him. That's all I want is I want to go to the
Mhm.
distance, and so they made a big deal about how every opponent he's faced, Paul has either knocked down or knocked out, and I wonder if a big part of Tyson's strategy was I don't want to lose my aura as Iron Mike Tyson. I can't let this kid knock me down.
Mhm.
And that's why because he didn't really throw a lot of combos. He never really followed up when he would land something. They
No, he
were
went out as
always
a
very
counterpuncher.
quick. Yeah,
He,
it was always very quick counter punches and then back to the peekaboo,
Mhm.
right? He was not very aggressive, even in the early rounds when he landed some hits. And I was wanting and expecting, okay, now follow that up. Okay, you got that good hit hook in there. Now get in tight because he's trying to back away. Now get in tight and wreck his body. And
Mhm.
he didn't. He would boom, he would get in that hit and then he would peekaboo.
Yeah, that sense of urgency does make a difference. Uh, the best fight of my life was when I beat Pedro Javier in Monterrey. Was I remember walking out to the ring and going, I should have gone to the bathroom. and, and I had to pee so bad walking into that ring, and that was like it erased all my stage fright, getting in front of thousands of people. It erased everything, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. And I beat him in a minute and a half, and he was the most qualified opponent I had ever fought. But it erased everything, and that sense of urgency is I mean, that should have been the strategy: is get in there, get out. You're old. And he went in there, I'm going to get in, and like you said, probably played it too safe to not be knocked out or whatever. And it was just the worst strategy and made for kind of a blah fight. But
Well,
I do appreciate what happened for the undercard people because,
yeah,
uh, yeah, I might actually watch boxing again if we get fights like those.
yeah.
Yeah.
You had an analogy you wanted to make to Wheel of Time. Were you going to save that for Wednesday, or did you want to make that? You
I've
apparently
slept
had a
since then.
connection to make to Demandred. Except
Uh,
your phone auto corrected in silly ways, and so I'm not actually sure what you were trying to say. Uh
what was the?
oh, about Land versus Demandred, I
Oh,
think is
oh,
what
and I
that's
got
supposed
a
to say.
good review for tomorrow.
It's what we
It's
just
what we.
talked about with Land versus Demandred. So I assume it's the I'm not in here to survive.
Yeah. I think that was probably it. Who knows? I drank a lot last night, so. But no, it's yeah. We'll save it for Wheel of Time. But yeah, we've rambled too long already,
All
anyways.
right, we've had an hour of men yelling at clouds. Hopefully, we said something interesting, even though we are garbage analysts who don't understand
Well, no,
numbers.
keep leaving the comments. I mean, it gives us topics, right? So, I mean, we went longer on that topic than I think we would have
Yeah,
had we not had that comment.
yeah.
So, no, and realistically, I'm here to communicate. I'm not here to be liked, right? So, if you have a negative comment, leave it. Fine. We'll talk about it. If I don't satisfy you, leave another comment. I don't care. Just keep watching,
I just
right?
asked that you go past first tier thinking, and it's uh I know like, okay, yes. Now what's the next thought of why? Give us specifics, give us argumentation.
Yeah. Oh,
That's what
yeah.
we're here for.
Yeah. We got fingers and you got plenty of keyboard to type it. It's not like we have thousands of comments to sift through. So go for it, man.
All right. Well, we will see y'all Wednesday for Wheel of Time and see how far we make it now that we're finally out of the freaking last battle.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're almost done, and just in time for the show to come back out, which I saw was April of 2025.
Son of a. All right.
Well, no, but what did you bring up this last time that had there was some lore that you said was a whole publication in itself?
Oh, the short story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We probably should read that after we
Yeah,
finish.
it's part of an anthology, so I'll have to see if I can find it. But there was a short story called River of Souls that was mostly cut material about Demandred in Shara and where he got this Saw and Grail scepter.
Okay, so yeah, maybe we can read that, keep it going up until we bitch and moan about the series again.
Yay.
All right. No disclaimers needed today. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you Wednesday.